I'm here at South by Southwest with Eli Truong, who is the Deputy Editor of Strategic Initiatives at the Washington Post, and Emily Withrow, who's the Director of the Quartz Bot Studio. So thank you guys for speaking with me today.
Of course, thanks.
We want to talk a little bit about product thinking. You just got off a great panel on the future of AI in journalism. You both have responsibilities for various emerging products. Can you give us a little bit of background and how you got to the positions that you are now? Well, Emily, why don't you start?
Sure. I mean, for me, it was a lot of trial and error. I volunteered early and often in my career to build things that were far outside of my comfort zone and, frankly, my skill set. And I worked at really nimble, lovely organizations that said yes to me a lot. And that was a really foundational thing for me because I taught myself enough code to be dangerous. I was able to build interactive modules for the website and then slowly but surely sort of shift my way over into titles that started to have words like digital or tech involved. And from there, yeah, I think that's really it, is just a real curiosity for emerging spaces and trying to figure out very early how news and information will fit in those emerging spaces. And so that's been the commonality. And I jumped from McKinsey, which is my sort of mistake move maybe at the beginning of my career, to The Onion, to Northwestern University, did a lot of freelance during that time as well, and then recently landing at Quartz.
Okay, and Eli?
Yeah, I think for me it was kind of figuring out, I was always interested in what's next in journalism, and I was always, not by choice, pushed towards that sort of field. I think, so I started out originally as a food reporter in journalism, and that was my first job in news, and then started getting tasked because I was, the young person in the room. You have to figure out social media. It's becoming important, but not important enough that we have to move anyone off who's established on those kinds of things. Getting new assignments like, can you manage these developers? We don't know how to talk to them. There's a bug in the website. Can you start doing that as well? That's something that young people should be able to figure out how to do. And it ended up being a real blessing in disguise to get all those new tasks to figure out how to manage the website completely, while everyone else was focused on the print product, because it taught me how to learn new things, often without mentors who were in charge of those things, even as an intern, even as an editorial fellow. And I ended up having to, just seeing that I had more aptitude towards having to figure out what's next and how to teach myself those things, like learn analytics kind of on my own, especially online. And so I started moving pretty quickly towards something that I was a little scared of doing, which is the heyday of relaunches, like when everyone is starting to relaunch their website in 2012 through 16, almost everyone did it at least once or twice, figuring out how to appeal to this online audience that we have, we kind of didn't serve for a while across the board. And so from there, I just kind of started moving a little bit more towards the product management role in journalism, which was very, very new when I accepted that, I think, in 2014. And that involved managing all these new tech partnerships with Facebook, Google, Apple, Flipboard, things like that, that were still like a small priority, but growing pretty quickly, and someone who was open to learning how to use those business skills, those technical skills, the news judgment sort of skills on those new places to reach new audiences, would need to be in charge of. So I think that translated pretty nicely into my role at the Post now, where I'm in charge of pretty much storytelling on emerging technologies in general, whether that's at scale, like through systems, or individual stories.
And so what are some of the key products or projects that you are responsible for at your individual organizations?
So I'm the director of the Quartz Bot Studio. What that means is I actually oversee both our editorial arm as well as our commercial arm. So I sit on the product team as well as the editorial team, which is interesting and fun. And so we are really an experimental studio, storytelling studio. So we're looking at emerging technologies, primarily voice and chat experiences where there's a real back and forth or a dialogue between users and the journalists. And we're producing stories. Each one is designed in a slightly different way. We're really looking at the data behind each story. We're really looking at the engagement behind each story, because there are no answers in this space right now, and so we make sure that we're asking really good questions with each story that we tell, so that we can get more information about what works in these emerging spaces, and then slowly but surely get better and better numbers of engagement with these stories. So we've been around for about a year and a half. That's right. And we've done everything from Facebook Messenger bots to Alexa skills, and a ton of stuff that never saw the light of day because we did not have confidence it would work. And that's a real privilege, I think, to be able to work in an organization that allows you to try and fail often, because eventually, I sort of chafe at the word failure, to be honest with you, and it's like a buzz thing, like fail fast and like love to fail. But I think that's dishonest, right? Because not everybody works in a place where they have the privilege to fail, and two, you're learning, right? I mean, it's a real learning experience. So, I think that's the key to actually doing something that's not successful, is to ask yourself, well, what did I learn from this experience, and then take that into the next. So we have tons of stuff that we haven't done as well, but that's really the charge of our studio.
And what are some of the products at Washington Post that you work with?
Sure. So a lot of the things that I oversee are in a little bit more of the visual space, I guess. So I've done more projects in stories in the augmented reality and virtual reality space. We are releasing a VR film that will premiere at Tribeca Film Festival at the end of April. Thank you. And it's just a new way to be able to step inside, internal journeys, like not just taking you to a place that you've never been before, but inside someone's head to see what they've been through in the last year. The storyline is basically of the school shooting that happened in South Carolina in Townville, and this 6-year-old girl who had lost her best friend, and the year that she's had since, basically. So it's an unusual way to tell a story like that. And it's not usually what you'd see, which is a very literal interpretation of like a VR film will take you to this place that you haven't been before, but more like sort of a journey and approaching it like a filmmaking perspective. So I oversee those kinds of things. I also oversee our AI initiatives, like Heliograph, which I talked a little bit about in the panel, which is we affectionately refer to as our AI reporter, who covers like large-scale events like election results and high school sports games, other things in the future, with sort of living data rolling into those stories. And a few other things that will be rolling out in the future, I think. But our charge is to reach new audiences using new technologies, and it's always fun to figure out what that means in any given time.
So you've already started alluding to some of the ways that you better understand your audience and decide about features. What are some of the specific product concepts that you're both working on when you work with products and when you work with people who are developing the products for you?
I'm not sure I understand the question very well.
Are there particular tools or techniques that you use to better understand the audience or determine the features that are part of product management that you can discuss, either one of you?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of homegrown data analysis, right? So, I worked at a university for 6 years, and I'm really very interested in how people behave and what their habits are, and how we can better serve people sort of the right content at the right moment. And so there's not a lot of sort of micro level data about that that you can get from people just coming to your website. And so, when we build our stories, we are collecting, really it's sort of like an ambient data collection based on their behavior, how far they get in the story, which path they travel, whether someone goes to the music stuff first and then to the art stuff. We look at order sort of in that way, and we look at time of day, day of the week, because we truly believe that people are not the same at 8 a.m. as they are at 8 p.m., and that they have different habits and really different parts of our coverage that they're interested in at those times. So we've been working on this concept of smart push, which is not push notifications in aggregate to buckets of people. It's really push notifications specifically for you, based on your habits. And so we guess over and over again, and then try to get smarter about when we might capture your attention.